With all of the talk about Kyle Larson's attempt at the Memorial Day double being ruined by Mother Nature, can we take a second to think about how awesome it would have been if Juan Pablo Montoya had ever gotten to attempt the double? Montoya is arguably one of the most talented and versatile drivers that the world has seen in the last quarter of a century. During his 7-year run in NASCAR, he did accomplish a very unique and rare feat. He's one of only 6 drivers in NASCAR history to have multiple seasons with 0 DNFs. If you can name any or all of the other 5 drivers who have done this, let me know in the comments, and let's look back on his 7-year run in NASCAR and find out whether Montoya was a man ahead of his time. So, a while back I laid out why Marcos Ambrose was a driver who was far ahead of his time in NASCAR, and today I wanted to take the same kind of look at Juan Pablo Montoya's NASCAR career. Before ever taking the green flag in a NASCAR race, Montoya had already won a kart championship, the Indy 500, and 7 Formula One Grand Prix, including the Monaco Grand Prix. So when he signed a multi-year deal to leave Formula One and come to NASCAR to drive for Chip Ganassi, it took a lot of people by surprise. His rookie campaign in NASCAR was filled with highs and lows. He picked up a 5th place finish at Atlanta in just the 4th race of the season, but that and an 8th place finish at Texas were the only 2 top 15 finishes he'd have in the first 15 races. But then came Sonoma, the 16th race on the schedule, and Montoya's first shot at a road course in NASCAR. With 7 laps to go, he'd find himself leading a race for the first time in NASCAR, and he wouldn't give it up. He won his first Cup Series race as a rookie at Sonoma, which is no small feat, even for someone with his level of experience. Stock cars were so different compared to anything he had raced before that this should be considered a major accomplishment. In the 16 years since that race, only 6 races have been won by drivers carrying a rookie stripe. And if you'd like to hear more about that, then check out my video on the golden age of NASCAR rookies. Montoya's rookie season came right at the tail end of that wonderful era. The rest of his rookie season would see a little improvement, but still a lot of ups and downs. Highlighted by a runner-up finish at Indianapolis, he would finish with 6 top 10s and a 20th place finish in points. Honestly, I think his rookie season was better than the numbers show. You see, 2007 was one of the weirdest seasons in NASCAR history, because NASCAR was rolling out the car of tomorrow throughout the season. So, roughly half of the races were run in the Gen 4 car, and half of the races were run in the car of tomorrow, which in retrospect was a terrible idea by NASCAR. But that meant that Montoya, whose entire career was built on running open wheel cars, not only had to learn 1 new car, but 2 new cars simultaneously. So all things considered, I think that we can call his rookie year a success. He certainly suffered from a sophomore slump in 2008, scoring only 3 top 10 finishes and finishing 25th in points. However, in 2009, he was a model of consistency. He may not have won a race in 2009, but he was running at the finish in all 36 races, scored 7 top 5s and 18 top 10s, and won his first 2 poles, en route to a career-high 8th place finish in points. He'd find his way back to victory lane for his second and final Cup Series victory in 2010, along with another 14 top 10s and 3 poles, but really lacked the consistency he had the year before and ended up 17th in points. Unfortunately, Montoya would never finish any higher than 21st in points in the remaining 3 years he had in NASCAR. From 2011 to 2013, he would only manage a total of 6 top 5s, 18 top 10s, 4 poles, and finishes of 21st, 22nd, and 21st in points. In Montoya's defense, Ganassi was really struggling as a whole during this period of time. His teammate at the time was Jamie McMurray, and McMurray really struggled as well. Montoya's full-time NASCAR career would come to an end after the 2013 season. He would come back for 2 starts in Penske's 12 car in 2014. He ended his NASCAR career with 255 starts, He collected 2 wins, 24 top 5s, 59 top 10s, and had an average finish of 19.8. In 2014, he would move to IndyCar full-time with Team Penske. He would race 3 full seasons with Penske's IndyCar team, winning 5 races and 12 podiums. In 2015, he also picked up his second Indy 500 victory and finished second in points. After his stint in IndyCar, he would turn his focus to IMSA's WeatherTech Sports Car Championship for Acura Team Penske in 2018. He would win the championship in this series for Acura Team Penske the following year. After one more season with Acura Team Penske in 2020, he would settle into running select races in IndyCar and sports cars. That's really just a brief overview of Montoya's post-NASCAR career, but I wanted to get through those really quickly so we could turn to the real question. Was Juan Pablo Montoya ahead of his time in NASCAR? My answer to that question is yes, but not in the same ways as Marcos Ambrose, who was the subject of a previous video. To compare Montoya's time in NASCAR to that of Marcos Ambrose is both fair in some ways and unfair in others. Both were drivers with an unconventional rise to the Cup Series. Both raced together and for similar lengths of time, with Montoya racing 1 season longer than Ambrose. And both had similar levels of equipment, with Montoya perhaps having a slight edge in that department. Ambrose was statistically better than Montoya on road courses, but Montoya beats Ambrose in overall stats pretty much across the board. Montoya certainly peaked from 2009 to 2010, but his drop-off in the 2 following years really coincided with a drop in performance from his team as a whole. But 2013, his last year as a full-time Cup Series driver, was interesting. He did have some really solid performances, leading 67 laps at Richmond, 38 laps at Atlanta, and battling Tony Stewart for the win at Dover until the bitter end, nearly winning his first race on an oval. Montoya spent nearly his entire NASCAR career driving in the Car of Tomorrow era, and one of the things that drivers from that era always complained about was that there was no real freedom to drive the car the way that individual drivers wanted to drive. Like I said at the top of the video, Montoya is one of the most versatile drivers that we've seen in the last few decades. I think that had he been allowed to drive the car the way that he wanted to drive it, then he would have really figured it out and had a much more successful NASCAR career. If you took Montoya and put him in the Gen 7 car that we have today, I think he would be a lot more successful. Add into that the fact that the number of road courses on the schedule has gone from 2 to 5 and had been 6 for a couple of years. I think that Montoya would have been an annual playoff contender. When it comes to how far he gets in the playoffs, I think there's a good shot that he makes it to the round of 8. Watkins Glen is in the round of 16, so if he doesn't win that race, then he probably performs very well. In the round of 12, the Roval is in that round, so there's a good shot he wins or has a very strong finish there, and maybe makes it out of the round of 12. I honestly don't see him going past the round of 8. Las Vegas and Homestead really were not good tracks for him, and you really need to be good at all 3 races once you get that far. But that still has him performing better in NASCAR today than he did during his career. So I'll say it again, I think Juan Pablo Montoya may very well be one of the most talented and versatile drivers that we have seen in a generation. I believe that he was ahead of his time in NASCAR, and that if he were racing today, that he would have had a much more successful career in NASCAR. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.